Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 8 years of this Prime Minister's out-of-control spending that even Liberals are starting to notice. Liberals like Bill Morneau, who said the federal government lost the agenda, and Mark Carney, who called inflation homegrown. These aren't just random Liberals, as the Prime Minister says. They were some of the Prime Minister's biggest defenders. They want to know, and Canadians want to know, when will this Prime Minister show some humility, admit responsibility, and end his reckless inflationary spending?
You're right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, Canadians remember well in the depths of the pandemic when people pulled together. We stepped up to support people. We stepped up to support our neighbours. Frontline health workers stepped up to support people. These are the things that got Canada through this pandemic with a better record and fewer deaths than just about any of our peer countries. There's a lot of work to continue to do to support Canadians, and this government is unequivocally standing with Canadians to support people who need that help to create better opportunities as we grow the economy for the future.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals can talk about the billions they spent all they want, but never in this country has so much money brought so few results. After 8 years, the facts speak for themselves. The highest inflation in 40 years, the highest interest rates in a generation, the highest home prices ever. Mr. Speaker, a new poll suggests that 45% of Canadians with variable mortgage rates will have to sell their homes in under 9 months. They can say it, but Canadians know that everything's not okay. So I'll ask again, will he show some humility and admit responsibility?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are facing difficult times right now, which is why this government stepped up in the fall with direct support by doubling the GST credit for about 11 million Canadians, by moving forward with dental supports and rental supports for Canadians who needed it, two initiatives that the Conservatives actually voted against. Right. Mr. Speaker, while they are abandoning the middle class, we're going to continue investing and being there for Canadians, not just because it's the right thing to do to support people who need it, but because it's also the smart thing to do to keep our economy growing strongly into the future.
Here, here. Le député de Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles.
Monsieur le Président, après 8 longs...
Mr. Speaker, after 8 long years with this Liberal government, taxpayers are realizing just how badly this country is being run. Everything's costing more, partly because this government is spending money hand over fist. For example, consulting firm McKinsey received $120 million in contracts from this government, but nobody can tell us why. Not the Prime Minister, his ministers, or his officials, no one. In what universe does a government spend $120 million on contracts and drag the country further into debt without knowing exactly why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians remember full well that during the pandemic, when everything was uncertain, the federal government was there for them. We invested $8 out of $10 in support for Canadians during the pandemic. The federal government did that because not only did we need to be there for people because it was the right thing to do, but it was also the smart thing to do because we saw record growth in jobs and strong economic growth. The reality is that Canadians are suffering now, and we need to continue to be there for them. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer concluded that $200 billion over the $250 billion spent during the pandemic that had nothing to do with the pandemic. Some expenditures included $173 million of taxpayer money into Medicago, which just announced that they're going to close their doors, owned by the Japanese company Mitsubishi. They invested $173 million without figuring out if this company was actually going to lead to long-term jobs. Why are they spending money hand over fist without making even basic checks? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, no one's surprised to see the Conservatives once again attacking our policy of vaccination and suggesting we did not do the right thing by trying to get vaccines, all the different types of vaccines possible, to make sure that Canadians could have access to things that were going to save lives. That's exactly what we did. We were very lucky to have all the vaccines we did because we went through this pandemic in the best way possible. Better than many other countries, we will continue to be there to support Canadians during these difficult times. That's what this government does. The opposition is preaching austerity instead. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It took nearly 2 years for the Prime Minister to meet the premiers for Quebec and the provinces. The issue is health transfers, which we've been talking about since the first time I came to this place. This issue is an issue of speed. There are people who are suffering. There are people who are worried. There are people who are afraid. There are people who are waiting. Can the Prime Minister agree with me and say that what ensures speediness in treating people is a quick check and not conditions? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Allow me to correct my honourable colleague and highlight that for 2 years, no Prime Minister has had more meetings with premiers about health. For several weeks at the beginning of the pandemic, we were there to talk with them, to help them to invest $72 billion more in federal money on top of the $40 billion per year that we send to health systems. And I will be pleased to sit down with premiers tomorrow to talk about how we can make our health systems secure for the future. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister must find it convenient that there was a pandemic to claim that he had great meetings over the phone. But those discussions must have been terrible because they've led to no results. Emergency rooms are overflowing. People are waiting for surgeries. We have mental health issues. We have respiratory issues. Is the minister trying to deliver a service through the provinces to the people that are suffering, or centralize health jurisdiction in his hands in Ottawa? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I am sure, Mr. Speaker, that my honourable colleague will be pleased to know that we agree on the need of getting results from our health systems throughout the country, results for families who can't get a family doctor, results for people who need urgent care for their mental health but have to wait months and months, and people working in emergency rooms. We are there for the provinces. We will invest and we will make sure that results are obtained throughout the country. That's what the premiers want. That's what we all want. And tomorrow, we're going to take an important step in that direction.